Listen to part of a lecture in a psychology class.
The National Institute of Mental Health has been doing some interesting research on chemicals in the brain, the neurotransmitters, by looking at brain images, and at least some of the research has shown that the brain circuits responsible for sleep, appetite, concentration, and mood, they're altered during depressed states. So basically, we've concluded that depression's caused by chemical imbalances in the brain. But we're still unclear about what triggers those imbalances in the first place. Some types of depression appear to be genetically inherited, but often there's no family history of depression, or conversely, a person with a family history may never develop a depressive disorder. So it's a thorny problem. Here at the university, we've been studying a disorder called seasonal affective disorder. Norman Rosenthal first identified this disorder in the mid-'80s. The theory is that a decrease in light during the long winter months may be responsible for triggering a chemical imbalance that in turn may cause depression among those people with a predisposition to depression. Supposedly there's an area of the brain called the suprachiasmatic nucleus, which is very close to the retina of the eye. So this area of the brain responds to light by sending a signal to the pineal gland, and the signal causes the gland to suppress a secretion of a hormone called melatonin. To make a long story short, the more light, the less melatonin in the blood. Okay, the acronym for seasonal affective disorder that's being used in the field is SAD. We didn't come up with that. And in fact, I personally think that it's an inappropriate way to refer to such a serious type of depression, since it sounds rather mild, and seasonal affective disorder can be a very severe and debilitating disorder for some people. In fact, in extreme cases, it's life-threatening when patients become suicidal. So anyway, as you can appreciate, the winter here is very dark, cold, and gray. By spring, almost everyone's tired of the gloom. But for some people, those suffering with seasonal affective disorder, it can be a serious problem. People with seasonal affective disorder experience deep and prolonged depression throughout the winter months, with what looks like a spontaneous alleviation of the condition when spring arrives. Before the disorder was identified, it was rather a mystery for friends and family, since the depression appeared to vanish only to return several months later. Now, although previous research isn't conclusive, we do know that younger people, especially younger women, these women are at a higher risk for developing the disorder and for being affected by it in a more severe form. If I recall, about 75% of those affected are women, with a typical age of onset about 30 years old. Other factors that contribute to the problem, apart from the long dark days, of course, these factors include heredity and stress. What are the symptoms? Well, the usual spectrum of problems associated with depression: anxiety, lack of concentration, a tendency to sleep more and eat more, cravings for food with a high sugar content. This may be accompanied by weight gain. On the other hand, some people actually lose their appetites and tend to lose a significant amount of weight. We also see lower energy levels, and for some people, a dull headache may accompany the problem. So, building on the research studies that identified the symptoms of seasonal affective disorder and the high-risk profile, we decided to undertake a longitudinal study of 120 subjects, and our research is really focusing on therapies that might help those people affected by SAD. Traditionally, psychotherapy has been used to identify and modify behaviors that contribute to depression, and it's been somewhat successful with patients identified with seasonal affective disorder, especially when used in combination with relaxation and stress reduction therapies. Antidepressant drug therapy has also been proven to reduce depression in studies of people who had seasonal disorders. But we've been using phototherapy almost exclusively with the subjects in our studies. It's very simple, really. We supplied each subject with a light box that provides the same type of natural lighting that would normally be shining through the window during the spring and summer. The subjects have been instructed to turn on the light box for 2 hours and then simply go about their activities in the room where the box is placed. They're not supposed to use the box like a sun lamp, no staring into the light, either with the eyes closed or open. They just ignore it once it's turned on. So, although we're still evaluating our data from the first group of subjects, we have a few preliminary findings that I'll share with you today. First, we think that it's probably better to be exposed to the light box during the morning hours. Second, we're noticing a relationship between sleep patterns and seasonal depression, so maintaining a regular schedule for sleep seems to be a helpful therapy in conjunction with the light treatment. We're also fairly sure that the duration of light therapy can be modified for individuals. Some subjects who were exposed to the light for less than 2 hours did very well, while others showed no evidence of relief until they reestablished the 2-hour treatments. One interesting possibility that we're working on is whether fluorescent lights might work as well as full-spectrum light with the ultraviolet rays filtered out. In our first trials, we used UV light exclusively, but now we have some trials underway with fluorescent light, and the results so far are encouraging. I'm also happy to report that there are few subjects who are experiencing side effects. There's no evidence of eye damage. We've been careful to filter out any potentially damaging UV rays. And in fact, the only negative side effect was minor headache that seemed to disappear after a few treatments. So next semester, we plan to begin the second stage of our studies, and we'll be comparing the degree of depression on the part of subjects undergoing light treatments with control groups who'll receive either drug treatments or psychotherapy. What we really want to know is whether light treatments alone are as effective as the other options for therapy.